Hello and welcome to Prohibition University. Today, let's try our hand at making a little bit of rum. Let's do some of the basic science to determine what sort of proportions we're going to have to use when we make a full-size batch in a brew kettle. You're going to find on the internet any number of recipes for rum. A lot of them are very nebulous, a lot of them are very crude in that they're using simply white table sugar with a little molasses thrown in for good measure. That's not what I'm interested in doing here. I want to make a better tasting rum than that. I've talked to a number of craft distillers. They're not ready and willing and able to give up their exact recipes for rum, and I appreciate that. We did, however, have a gentleman in our September workshop here at Urban Distilleries. He came from Edmonton, Alberta, and if I haven't already at this point in time, I'm going to be giving you a sample of his rum made in his basement and aged in an oak barrel for 4 years. It is phenomenal. He gave me a few generous pointers, and I've followed up on his advice. So, here's what you need to know. Go to the grocery store and look for molasses, and you will be shocked at how expensive it is. You can certainly use it if you want, but it is pricey. What I've done is I have gone to an animal agricultural feed store right here in Regina, Saskatchewan. This is where people would go if they wanted grains or nutrients and vitamins, etc., for their horse, their livestock. The molasses that I got there was literally a quarter of the price that I would have had paid at the grocery store. And from what I can see, it tastes the same. It's just a little bit thinner. I don't know if they've added a touch of acid or something to it to thin it out, but it is every bit as good as what you get at the grocery store. So now, on the scale in front of you here, I've got about 200 milliliters of water. Don't worry about the color. There was a little bit of molasses in my measuring cup. Now, what I'm going to do, I'm going to turn my scale on here, get it zeroed, and I'm going to be adding to that water 60 grams of molasses. Like so. Now, I'm going to be adding 50 grams of cane sugar. Now, cane sugar is simply evaporated sugar cane juice, and it is a little bit more expensive than your typical white sugar and your brown sugar, but that's okay. Okay, so there we go. Let's give that a little stir. Make sure everything is dissolved. Now, in a brew kettle, I would take that up to about 50 or 55 degrees centigrade, just to make sure that everything was nicely dissolved in there. Now, I want to see what I've got for a gravity. In your workshop, we've shown you how to use the refractometers. This stuff is going to have a very high starting gravity, and in fact, if I put a sample of that onto the lens of my refractometer, it's going to be off the scale. So, if you're doing rum at home, here's the second thing you need to know. You should go out and buy yourself a graduated cylinder and a gravity meter. Any home brew store will sell these. Any store that sells home wine kits, etc., will sell these. It'll cost you just a few dollars. So now, I'm going to take my solution here, and I'm going to pour it in here, like so. There we go. And let's see what we got for gravity. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Okay, so we've got about 1.096, 1.098, somewhere in there, which is about, if you could get a proper reading on your refractometer, would be around about 25 bricks. So the gravities you're going to be dealing with when making rum at home certainly are going to be a little higher than what you're used to for making grain mashes. Now, the yeast that we're going to be using comes from White Labs in California, and it is simply their rum distillers yeast. And if you read the bag, it tells me I should do my ferments between 25 and 30 degrees centigrade. And it tells me furthermore that this yeast is tolerant for alcohol up to around about 15%. So based on my starting gravity, assuming that this all ferments out and my finishing gravity ends up at 1.000, I'm going to be looking at about 13% alcohol. So I don't think it's all going to ferment out, but I do expect to get at least 10 or 11%. So now I'm going to do this in large scale in my brew kettle. So to scale it up, here's what we know. We're going to use, instead of 200 mils of water, we're going to use 20 liters. Instead of 60 grams of molasses, we're going to use 6 kilograms. And instead of the 40 grams of sugar, we're going to use 4 kilograms. We're going to get all of that put into the brew kettle, heat it up to 50 degrees C, get everything nicely dissolved. Then we're going to cool it back down to 30 degrees C, at which point we're going to add our yeast, our nutrient, and let the fermentation process begin. Okay, so here's the graduated cylinder. I've taken a sample, just using a measuring cup out of the brew kettle, poured it into the graduated cylinder. I've added my specific gravity meter, allowed it to stabilize. What I'm getting for a specific gravity is 1.096. Now recall that in your workshop I gave you the very simple mathematical formula for trying to determine roughly how much alcohol you're going to be left with at the end of your ferment. Take your starting gravity, 1096. I'm assuming this is going to ferment out more or less completely down to a finishing gravity of 1. In that case, I am going to end up with what's the mathematics? 96 times 0.13. You're looking at around about 12% alcohol, give or take. The yeast that we're using from White Labs is tolerant up to apparently 14% alcohol. So I'm right in the range where the yeast is going to be happy. I'm going to give this a fairly liberal dose of nutrients and let it start fermenting. And from what I understand, the ferments will take 4 or 5 days. And that's it. That is one variation of how you would make rum at home if you were doing research in your garage or in your basement.